Hello everyone and welcome back to the Big Europe Show. I'm Mireia.
And I am Stefanos from Eurodesk, and we are very happy to be here again for the 14th and last episode of the Big Europe Show. Today we will take a virtual journey to Türkiye, a transcontinental country located right at what is considered the boundaries between Europe and Asia.
That's right, actually only 3% of the country is in Europe. And Stefanos, do you know how many countries Turkey borders?
I think a lot actually. Wait, let me think. It's Nepal to the northwest is Bulgaria, Greece to the west, Armenia, Azerbaijan, and Iran to the east, Georgia to the northeast, Syria to the south, and Iraq to the southeast.
Yes, correct. And they are indeed a lot of countries, so good job. I see that you have a good geographical knowledge. But okay, let's see if you can answer this one. Which is the capital city of Turkey?
I mean, the capital city is Ankara, not Istanbul.
Yeah, that's right. I tried to trick you there, but I see that you know this one too. I always get confused, honestly. So maybe I would have said Istanbul instead. And did you know that Istanbul is the only transcontinental city in the world? Like part of Istanbul is in the continent of Europe, and the other part is in Asia.
Wow, no, I didn't know that. It's very interesting. But I actually have two interesting facts about Turkey as well.
Okay.
Did you know that Santa Claus was born in Turkey?
No way.
Yes, and that's not all. Probably when somebody talks about tulips, they think about the Netherlands, but it was actually Turkey who introduced tulips to the world.
Really? I didn't know that. And honestly, yes, it's true. I always picture the fields in Netherlands full of tulips. So I didn't know that they were actually coming from Turkey. But I knew one thing, that is that Turks were the ones that introduced coffee in Europe. And now that we are talking about coffee, you always think about food. So I think it's really important to mention that Turkey's food is really good. Like they have so many dishes, like for example, borek, doner, baklava, and so much more. Oh, and we cannot forget about the tea. Did you know that Turkey has the highest tea consumption in the world?
Ah, my God, I think I'm so hungry right now. I think I will try all of it in July when I go to the Cappadocia Balloon Festival. So every year, the town of Urgup hosts a balloon festival where special balloon shows take place from the dawn until nighttime, and there are also a lot of concerts and DJs as well. So it's a nice place to visit in July.
Yeah, actually, it sounds like a great plan. But I think now it's time to keep going with the episode and introduce the guest of today. So let's welcome today's guest, Tayfun. Hello.
Hi, Tayfun.
Hello. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Fine. How are you doing?
Yeah, all good here. Yeah, we are excited. It's the last episode. So how do you feel to be the last guest and last participant of this podcast?
I think you know more than I do about Turkey. So
yeah, really.
And you're already hungry.
Yeah.
But it's a pleasure for me to be here and talk about my journey with you.
That's great. So I think just to start, the best thing is that you introduce yourself so everybody knows you a bit.
Sure. So I'm Tayfun. I'm 30 years old. I'm a former European voluntary servicee. I'm a former high school exchange student. I did social inclusion advocacy through European projects. And now I sit at my work. Actually, I'm working for UN Women in Turkey as the communications lead. I'm Turkish. My father is from Turkey, and my mother is from Cyprus. So I call myself a Mediterranean guy because my father is from Antalya. So it's just two coasts united, and I came to the world.
Nice.
That's really interesting. I'm also a Cypriot myself.
Yeah, it's
So-
great.
So Tayfun, in 2015, you created together with your brother the brand called Remo for Remzi. Can you tell us a bit more about it?
Yeah, sure. So, as I told you, I was a former European Voluntary Service volunteer. So my journey kind of started with when I was 15 years old. I took a high school exchange year and I went to Denmark, where I learned the Danish culture, the Danish language. And then I wanted to kind of continue, volunteering and working within the field of intercultural understanding and intercultural exchange. And then with this, when I was graduated from high school, I went to Sweden and I worked for a youth organization where I worked on intercultural understanding and conducted workshops with students around Sweden. And then when I started studying at the university, I studied journalism. I continued with volunteerism and I joined different seminars which were funded by European Youth in Action Program. I joined different trainings about social inclusion, and then suddenly I realized that my younger brother, Remzi, who is an autistic, a person with autism, that he was socially excluded. So even though he was going to the school, even though he was participating the ordinary school as with other students, he was excluded, and I wanted to do something about this. And Remzi, as he cannot speak very well, he has 90% autism. He expresses himself through drawing. So this started when he was 8 years old. He was at a friend's gathering with my mom, and then he took a pen and a piece of paper, and then he started drawing, and he never stopped, basically. And then I wanted to kind of introduce this to the world, because we introduced him the world of ceramics. And then this enabled him to first draw and then turn his drawings into ceramic sculptures. And I wanted the world to know about this, and I created Remo. And Remo is a social impact brand, which is co-created by me and my younger brother. So each drawing in Remo has a story behind, and these stories are kind of told by my brother, and I turn them into stories, because sometimes he draws people that he sees on the TV, or sometimes he draws things that he sees on streets. And then we use these drawings on different interior products like glasses, mugs, wall arts. And then Remo kind of unites his world with design, and then we kind of tell Remzi's story and his art through Remo. And Remo funds Remzi's solo exhibitions, which he previously opened in Ankara, Istanbul, and also in Oslo, the capital of Norway.
Yeah, well, it's like a big project, honestly. It's a lot of things. If I didn't get wrong, like, it's just the drawings, or you are also doing the sculptures?
So he draws and then he turns them into sculptures, and these sculptures are art pieces. And then Remo funds the exhibitions of Remzi, where he exhibits his sculptures and drawings. And right now, Remzi goes to university. So he studies at university, at the ceramic department with 90% of autism, which tells us that social inclusion is possible if you have the necessary legal framework and a support system.
Yes.
Is there a way to find the drawings and the ceramics online? Because I would love to see them.
Sure. So we have an Instagram account called Remo Design. So it's REMO and design in English. And then we have the website, which is designremo.com. And Remo is, the shortcut of Remzi, because Remzi is actually a really old Turkish name. So that's why we never called him Remzi at home. We called him Ramazotti. We inspired by Pavarotti, and we called him Ramazotti. And then the name turned into Remzo, and then it became Remo. And then I said, okay, Remo is very easy to pronunciate in any language. So why not calling this brand Remo? And then it became Remo, and it introduces the world of Remzi to everyone. And we also hope and we aim to empower other people with autism, other people with talent and autism, and try to make people understand that if there is if we don't disable people, then there isn't any disability, then, we can just accept our differences and provide the space for everyone to do what they do. And I think Remo tries to prove this.
Yeah, I think it's a really big project and really interesting. I honestly really like the message. It's a really, creative way to show and make visible all these things that you were talking about. And I'm sure that probably the way was not easy. So I was curious to know did you had any difficulty on the way?
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, it was hard. First of all, this was a brand, and it wasn't a project that we could apply to receive any funding. So I had to use my own savings, but I believed in it, and I used, and and it actually worked. So Remo, kind of Remzi as well, became popular, and this enabled us to open exhibitions to him. And what is challenging was also that it was only me and my brother. So we didn't, of course, it's, there is production of products, there is the storytelling part, there is the website creation. So I had to sit down and learn everything on my own, from marketing to communications, from production to sales. So I had to learn and practice and go with the approach of learning by doing. And that was challenging at the beginning. And it was also challenging to tell people what we aim. So people always ask where the money goes. And I told that this is Remzi's brand. I mean, it doesn't him being a person with autism doesn't mean that the money that is provided is going only to a donation. It's his brand, and he can use this money, and he did it. I took him to 2 different trips. For example, to visit museums in Vienna because he was very much interested, and also to the Netherlands to see some museums there as well. But the rest of it went to his exhibitions, and of course, it's also really difficult to kind of continue the efforts and not giving it up, because when it's really you need to believe, and for your belief, you need to work hard, and you should not kind of say, no, I can't do it because it doesn't come. It will come if you do till the end.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think in every new project, there are difficulties in the beginning, but if you work hard, if you believe in what you do, in the end, it will be successful. But let's change the topic a bit. So I want to ask you, what is the thing that you are most proud of until today?
About Remo or about anything
About
else?
in general.
Well, I think I'm really proud of me being able to understand the language spoken in different countries. So because I can speak Danish, Swedish, Norwegian, German, Turkish, English.
Okay.
I try to understand Greek, but I can't say. I can only read the alphabet, but I can't say that I understand. But
To be honest,
this was
it's a very
only,
difficult language.
yeah. You have a lot of eyes.
Yes, yeah, we do.
And I think this was only possible because of this, intercultural framework and network that I was involved, that I was, able to understand at the very early age that it is a must to know more than one culture, more than one language. To understand different cultures, to understand, to be able to work with different people from across different countries. And I think I'm really proud of this. And it was really a result of my engagement with the projects, led or funded somehow in some way by Europe.
So I want to ask you if your international experience helped you somehow with the development of your project with for the Remo for Remzi.
Yeah, sure. So as I told at the very beginning, I kind of realized that my own younger brother was socially excluded by the society. I kind of, realized this by joining different trainings, workshops in different capitals of Europe. And this international experience helped me, first of all, realize the problem, and finding the solution to this problem was also, it is also a result of my international experience, because I got the design idea, story building for a product from Denmark. I didn't study, design, and I didn't kind of took classes in interior design, but I lived in a country where design is really at the core of the culture of the nation. So I kind of got that inspiration from Scandinavia, and I think it's helped. It really helped me in developing the project, in kind of with the end product of it, and I'm really satisfied.
Okay. Before, when you were talking about that you started and you had to learn a lot of things that you didn't study it and you're not expert of it, it just came out a question. So it's not in the plan, but I really wanted to know, like, how do you start? Because you had the inspiration from Denmark, you had the idea, but how do you start if you don't have the knowledge? Yeah.
So first of all, the first start was kind of like a wishing tree. asked myself what I wish for. And I said, okay, I wish for a project that both I'm proud of, that I want to continue with, and that supports my brother. So it was basically my motivation. And with this motivation, I went to, I kind of checked the designer stores that I really follow, both from Scandinavia or from Turkey, you know, or global ones. And I kind of realized that that I have a talent at home, which kind of who waits to be discovered by the world. And I started taking photos of his drawings and kind of doing mock-ups on my computer by, you know, by watching the YouTube tutorials of different programs. So I was studying journalism at that time. So I had some courses in editing, and it helped me. But of course, it is not enough. You always should put on it. And step by step, I searched for a place where I can produce. I went to that place. I told about the story. I told them that my the amount of products that I'm going to produce won't be big. And when they heard the story, they said that they are willing to support, because, you know, mass production has minimum numbers. So my number was way minimum than their minimum numbers, but they accepted because of the story, you know. And I think telling the story in the right way is also really important. It can be the same story, but if you write a report out of it, maybe people won't read it. But if you kind of pitch it, then they can take it. So I kind of tried these ways and, you know, found the right one. And then I said, okay, I will also accept that we can fail, that this can fail. So I took a risk that I can face with, and not higher than a risk that I cannot face, that I cannot, you know, recover. And then I went and the first sales that we did was at a Christmas market in Ankara. And I had, you know, no hope. I just said, I had no expectations. I just said, we will try. And then all of them were gone. So we were out of stock in a few hours. And then, you know, then I could reach the minimum number of the production company.
Yeah.
And, you know, it still continues. It's still trying, and it's still, you know, that question I still ask myself: how do I start with any new single step?
Yeah, but I think it's important to point out that it's not an easy way. It's not that you're going to start and everything going to be right, and if it doesn't work right, then it's never going to work. No, sometimes it's just maybe not working at the beginning, but because you have to change something, not because you have to give up on it. So yeah, definitely working this in the pitch is really important. And yeah, just I was really wondering about this, because sometimes I think about it and I'm always a bit lost because I never work on this and really learn this. So yeah, good to see inspiration everywhere. But now I want to continue with the other topic that Stefanos started with you. So at the beginning, you already said that you were in Denmark doing an exchange and also the EBS in Sweden. But did you had other experiences abroad?
Yeah, so I started with Denmark, and then in Sweden I did my EBS, and then I went to Denmark again as an Erasmus student. And then while I was studying in Denmark, I started working for a magazine, and then and then I came back again to Türkiye, and then I went to Norway for 2 years for my master's degree. So I completed kind of this Candic triangle there.
Yeah.
I have Finland on my list. It's the next stop. I think this is, the overall international experience I have now through my work. I, do some missions, and it's all international in the international framework. But my previous experiences abroad are this.
And there's any reason why it's always Scandinavian countries, or it's just random?
I think it's it's a Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah.
Well, I love dark weather. Well, I'm kidding. I'm just. I think I just started with Denmark, and when I started with Denmark, I really liked the way of living. It's the opposite of how you live down here. So it's far, but only 3 hours by flight. So it's still close, but it's culture-wise really different, and I really like that difference. And I just stick to it, and I said, okay, now let's do it in Sweden. And then at the very end, Norway came as a surprise, actually, but I'm really happy with the surprise. I think my last destination kind of became my favorite destination. But I think the reason is that I started there and I wanted just to continue and, also advance my language skills, because these 3 languages are, similar to each other. But I once I did, professional transcription from Danish into Norwegian, so which tells that you can still, use the differences between these languages.
Yeah, but they are not easy languages. I don't know if they are similar to Turkish, but I don't think so, right?
No, totally different. Not similar at all. Having, learned German at school kind of helped me a bit because, these languages are Germanic languages, but it has nothing to do with Turkish.
Yeah, because I also lived in Norway and I tried to learn Norwegian, but for me it was too difficult.
Yeah, so the most difficult one is Danish. So I think you started from the wrong station. So if you start with Danish and with Denmark, then Norwegian is kind of way easier.
Okay, I will note that. But now I wanted to know if did these experiences change your way of seeing Europe?
Yes, it did. In a way that Europe is not, one single Europe. That Europe and European identity, it kind of changes from person to person, from family to family, from community to community. For example, people in Cyprus, they can easily call that, oh, I'm going off to Europe. And you know what? People in Norway, they sometimes say the same thing. So, but where is Europe then? So I think it really changes a lot, and it also changed my perspective. It kind of made it more diverse. That Europe is not, represented by the largest European Union member countries with the stereotypical personas of these countries, but it's way more diverse than that.
And I think this is the right time to ask you, what does it mean to be European for you?
Well, first of all, of course, it's a question of whether I'm a European or not. It's also a question for many people living in Türkiye. But me being benefited from Youth in Action program from European Voluntary Service, I think for me being European is being part of an cultural opportunities. where you can learn, where you can develop, where you can reflect on, where you can, easily get from one place to another, although it's not enabled to all countries in Europe. But I think it is, culture, diversity, and the opportunities.
And you said that it's a question about Turkish people, whether they're European or not. But how do you think young people from Turkey see Europe?
I think young people in Turkey are, they really feel in one way or another connected, because the country is only 1 or 2 hours flight hours away from any European, from the closest countries which are members of European Union. But of course, they also feel that there are difficulties regarding being able to travel. Basically, I think that's a concern for many, and Turkey is also a very big country with more than 80 million people living in there. So talking about the general youth is also, it wouldn't really represent the different conditions of young people in Turkey. But there are also a lot of young people in Turkey who are maybe who have not thought about what it is mean to be European. If they're not, out of their communities, or if they have never been out of their cities, or even, the country. And when you look at the percentages, the majority of people living in Turkey have never been out of Turkey. So I think this question has many different answers.
Yeah, and you were also commenting that maybe the thing that they don't travel that much, it can be also a reason. And my question is related to this, because now young people have opportunities that make it possible maybe to travel easier. Like, for example, you participate in the EBC, that now is ESC. And there's also Discover EU, that this year it was open also for people from Turkey. So do you think that young people from Turkey are aware of these opportunities?
I think if they are a part of a youth organization, if they are part of an organization, then they might be aware. If they are studying at university, and if their international relations office market about these opportunities, then they become aware of these opportunities. But wherever I go, I always promote these opportunities, which are, widely unheard. And I try to tell people that it is possible, that you don't need to, in order to go, you don't need to only be a tourist, or you don't need to go to work, or you don't need to, go to study. And there are other opportunities as well. You can go as a volunteer, you can go to a training, and I try to promote it myself too. But I think if they're not part of a youth network or a youth organization, then the chances for them to know about these opportunities are really low. So I think what we should do is kind of promoting young people to become, to network with each other, to become part of these youth networks, to learn from each other, to join, and then they can know about these opportunities, and they can kind of have access to information.
Indeed, and speaking about opportunities, let's come back to you now. So, how did you discover the opportunity to go and volunteer in Sweden with the EVS?
So I went there as part of the organization that I was volunteering for, Youth for Understanding. And it is also the organization that I went to Denmark with. And they had an office in Sweden, but it is kind of, first I heard about European Voluntary Service, and I heard about this from a volunteer who worked for Youth for Understanding office in Turkiye. And I asked about what it is. And then she told me that it is free, and in addition to being it free, it is also they also provide the sufficient accommodation and living expenses to you. And when I heard this, I kind of get in shock because I never knew that this was possible, and I started applying to the projects. And finally, the Youth for Understanding office in Sweden accepted my letter, and I started working, volunteering there.
And what were you doing there? What was the project about?
So it was about, I conducted a workshop called Colored Glasses. So it is about that each country and even each person has a colored glasses, and they see the world through these glasses. So if you, for example, if you're a Swedish person, then you see it from green. And if you're Turkish, then you see it from yellow. But if you go from Sweden to Türkiye, then when you buy from these Turkish glasses and put it on, then you don't see the world from the Turkish glasses, because when you combine green and yellow, then it turns into another color, which I don't remember now which color it was. So, and then from this metaphor, I tried to tell to high school students about how it is important to, do an exchange year, or at least go and discover other countries, both in Europe and elsewhere. And through this, I conducted workshops around 20 cities in Sweden. And it is, cities like the southern Sweden, like Malmö, Ystad, like the Skåne region, and also up in the Lapland region, like towns like Luleå, Jokkmokk, Arvidsjaur, Kiruna. And when I, for example, asked where Jokkmokk was located to the students who were living in Malmö, down in the southern part of the country, they were telling that it is maybe in Japan or China. So they didn't have a clue that it was in Lapland. So, and I kind of traveled across the country, and it was a great year for me. It was both career development, because I still use the things that I learned in Sweden. And it was also a cultural discovery for me.
Yeah, and also because you travel all around the country, you didn't stay just in one place, so you probably discover everything, like, because sometimes depending of the region is different. So to have the chance to travel all around the country makes you were able to learn everything. And so I wanted to know if during your experience abroad, did you see a lot of difference between the countries and the young people that you met?
I mean, as I just told you, even in the country, there is a big difference. And when you think about when you think about Sweden, it is 9 million people living there, and people have a stereotypical idea about what Sweden is all about, but it's way beyond than that, and it is, a country that has different accents, different cultures within the country, and it's the same with all countries. So the nation state borders are just borders, but within nation states you have hundreds and thousands of colors, and this is the answer, I think. So between the countries, of course, there are differences, but even in the countries, there are big differences. And getting to know these differences only strengthen us and empower us.
And I think now it's time for our last question.
Yeah, it was a bit long, so we had to skip some questions, but the last one, we cannot miss it.
No, because this is a question that we ask to every guest that comes here. So, Tayfun, what advice would you give to young people?
That they should never close their doors. Their doors should always be open, and they should always try. And they should always try to do things that make them different than the people around themselves. This will help their own personal growth. This will help in their career development, and this will help for them to live a better, a more fun life, I think. If I didn't kind of Google and found opportunities about being an exchange student, then my world would have been way different. And I wouldn't maybe go to Sweden as an EVSer, then I wouldn't maybe go to Norway for a master's degree. And international experience, it doesn't only mean that you should go and study your master's in another country, because that's not about it. I think the earliest possible is the best, to go out of your own comfort zone, and creativity and thinking out of the box never happens when you are in your comfort zone. So you need to break your comfort zone. And I think that's also what our world expects from us, thinking about all the crises, thinking about the climate crisis, thinking about the conflicts, thinking about the pandemic. It all, tells us that we need to act differently. And I think young people should kind of hear this and get out of their comfort zone, and this will support both themselves, their communities, and the world whole.
Yes, really important message. So thank you very much for being here and being part of this episode. It was really great to have you here today.
Thank you very much, Stefano and Mireia.
Yeah, it's a bit difficult.
Thank you.
Yeah, and to everybody that watch and follow us, also listen to the podcast during all this journey. Also, thank you to all of you to be part of this with us. And who knows, maybe see you in the future.
Of course, stay tuned, because we'll have a new podcast next year. And of course, you can listen and watch all the past episodes on our social media channels. You can find them all there.
So thank you very much, and see you all soon. Bye.